Hi guys, welcome back to Our Maine Homestead. Today I'm going to be taking you guys along with me as I cook our dinner for this evening. So we will be having homemade pizzas. So I'm going to make the dough myself, and then of course we top it and we cook it all in the wood stove. I've been getting a lot of requests for cooking videos, specifically cooking with the wood stove. So I figured tonight, since I'm already going to be making some dinner for us here in the wood stove, I might as well take you guys along and show you the process. So first and foremost, we have to basically preheat the oven. So I will be feeding the fire with some wood just from the front porch. I will be manipulating a few things on the stove as well to make sure that I can trap the heat in the oven and make sure the oven gets nice and hot. I'll also be preheating my pizza stone as well. So that's in the oven and ready to be preheated. So let's do that. So don't mind my messy house. This is real life in a real kitchen. But I just wanted to point out that we do have the thermostat on the front of the oven door. We also typically will keep a little thermostat inside of the oven as well. I have found that the temperatures on those two things never match. The front door always reads a little bit hotter than I think what's in the oven, and then the one that's in the oven always reads lower than what the temperature is. So timing and temperatures are always, I just can't go by what a recipe says. I just have to eyeball it and use my intuition for those two things. Okay, so to control the temperature on the oven, I can manipulate that by opening and closing that ashtray door that you guys saw a second ago. We also have some dampers here as well on the side of the stove, 2 of those. So I can open those up if I want the fire to get hotter, or I can close them down if I want the temperature to kind of slow down and maintain. So once my oven gets up to my desired temp, I will close down all of these things just to help trap that heat in there and make it maintained. And now we're going to get started with our dough. So I have a kettle of water heating up a little bit on the stove right now, so I'm going to take that off. It usually only has to sit on there for just a little bit because the stove top is quite hot. Then I take a teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of active dry yeast. And then 1 cup of water, warm water. So the trick with this, I'll tell you in just a sec. So the trick with the water, you want it to be warm, not hot, so that you can activate your yeast. So what I do is I usually just do like a finger test where I'll dip my finger in there. And typically if it's warmer than body temp, so if it feels warm to me, I will use it. But if it feels hot and my finger doesn't want to be in there because it's hot, then I will not use it. So I'll wait and let it cool down if it does seem to be too hot. So I'm going to add that to my salt, or my sugar and yeast mixture in there. And then we wait about 5 minutes for it to activate. So watching it activate is like my favorite part. So my yeast is nice and activated now, so I'm going to be adding some flour, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of olive oil. Then I'm just going to knead all of that together, mix it, and then knead it until it's like a kind of a soft, smooth dough. Eyeball everything. I will do my best to come up with some sort of recipe to give to you guys. but literally I just eyeball things, so, and hope for the best. And always mix by hand. I just like it that way. So I just keep adding flour little by little until it becomes a very manageable, not so sticky dough. Then once that happens, I will turn it out onto a lightly floured surface and start rolling it out. So this typically makes 2 doughs for us. So we get 2 pizzas out of this dough recipe. We like our pizzas a little bit on the thinner side, so we like a good thin crust pizza, and this is pretty perfect. But if you like kind of a thicker hand tossed style pizza, then you'll probably just want to use the whole dough for one pizza. So the dough's becoming a lot more manageable now. So it's about ready to be turned out and rolled out. Getting my rolling pin out, and then usually just take the dough and kind of eyeball it and divide it into 2. So I'll go back in there. Alright, so I find that whenever we're rolling out dough, we need lots and lots of flour to make sure it doesn't stick. And then I like to kind of start the process with my hands, just to kind of get it into the shape that I'd like it to be in, which for us is usually like kind of a rectangular shape. It's not perfect rectangular, but works for us. A little bit of flour on top so your rolling pin doesn't stick to it, and you can start rolling things out. I usually will just kind of hold it in place, because with the floured surface it does like to slide around, which is good because it's not sticking, but then it's hard to roll it out sometimes. Alright, so I've gotten this pretty well rolled out, nice and thin. It will shrink a little bit, as you will continue to see, but since my oven is all the way preheated, I'm going to pull my stone out, lightly flour that, put this crust on there, and then I'm actually going to bake the crust first, all by itself. I find that that tends to give me a very less soggy pizza. Like when you cook the crust first, all the toppings just sit on it really nicely, and it stays crisp all throughout the crust rather than getting real soggy in the middle. Here we go. Okay, so since I'm going to be opening and closing the oven door a lot, I want to be sure that I'm still kind of building up heat so that the oven stays hot. So I'm going to go ahead and open the ashtray door again on this fire. I will, as I'm cooking, check the wood situation in the fire and add more wood as needed. And again, using all the different places on the stove, I will try to regulate the temperature so that the oven stays nice and hot. And essentially, I want the thermostat on the front door of the oven to be pegged out. So as high as it'll go, that usually means it's nice and hot in there and ready to cook some pizza. So the stone doesn't need much flour, so I just kind of, there you go. And then I will put the crust there, spread it out just a bit, and then into the oven it goes. Oh, I floured it too well. Get back up on there. There we go. Saved. Okay, so that will be in the oven for a few minutes, especially since it's really hot, a few minutes. Then I'm actually going to take the whole stone out, rotate it 180 degrees, put it back in, because if you use a wood stove or a gas stove, you know that there are hot spots, and the back of the oven is usually a hotter spot than the front. So I do rotate things in the middle of baking just so that everything will cook evenly. So while the crust is doing its initial bake, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to store this dough so that I can use it for another pizza later on. And I'm going to get out everything that I'm going to top my pizza with. Okay, so my pizza crust is about ready to be flipped, that 180 degrees. I cleaned up all of my dough ingredients, and now I've got some leftover pizza sauce, or spaghetti sauce, sorry, some leftover spaghetti sauce that I'm going to put on as pizza sauce. And then I've got all of my seasonings here that I'll season it with. I've got oregano, black pepper, garlic powder, basil, and then a garlic salt. So I actually sprinkle all of those on. Then I'll do cheese, and I just got a 5-cheese Italian blend from the store, pepperoni, pepperoncinis, and then some mushrooms. So those are what we like to top our pizza with. Obviously, you can top your pizza with whatever you want. So here we go. We're gonna go flip that crust. Now it is time to get the crust out, get blasted in the face with the hot air. Classic. So while I have that out, and since I've been opening that a couple times, I'm going to open up the bottom again and let that go. And I'm still good on wood, so I don't have to add any wood to it. So as you can see, it's nice and like bubbled up. It's crunchy, crispy already, and obviously it's a little bit browned, but that's just going to help make the whole crust stay really crispy for the pizza. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little light layer of sauce. We don't really like heavy sauce on our pizza, so I'm just going to do like a couple of big spoonfuls and then just spread that out. Typically, we use our canned tomatoes from the garden that I have canned myself as our pizza sauce. So it typically is just blended tomato, so that's why I add seasoning to it. But even though this is a leftover like jarred sauce that I'm using this time, I'm still gonna add like our favorite seasonings to it. Get back on there. Okay, so we've lightly sauced the pizza. Just a little sprinkle of garlic salt. Garlic powder. Pepper. Come on, pepper. Pepper. Oregano. And basil. So just a light sprinkle of all of those things typically. Then I do a light layer of cheese. This is Eddie's favorite part because I am very messy with sprinkling it, so a lot of it falls onto the wood stove top like that and will eventually burn and smell real great. I kind of like the way that it smells, but Eddie does not. Okay. And take a handful of pepperonis. Lay those guys out. Okay. And next are the mushrooms. I don't bother cutting these down. I just let them stay whatever thickness they are. Spreading them out a little bit more than I usually do just because we're kind of down to the last little tidbits of mushrooms, so I'm going to make sure that they get kind of spread out evenly. But typically I'll put them very close together because we like the mushrooms on the pizza. Okay. And I sprinkle my pepperoncinis that I just cut up. I like a lot of pepperoncinis as well, so after I do that, then I'll just kind of spread these guys out a little bit because they don't fall very evenly on here. That looks pretty good. Alright. Now we cover it with heavy cheese. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So back into the oven we go. Okay, so now while the pizza cooks, which generally if I can keep the temperature in the oven really hot, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll do a 180 and then maybe 5, 10, 15 more minutes. It really just depends on how hot I can keep the oven, but again, this is all just about eyeballing, using your intuition. I just basically cook everything until all the cheese is melted and the edges start kind of browning, blackening up, that sort of thing, because we like it really crispy and hot and very well cooked. So now I'm just gonna clean up all of my pizza toppings, and then we'll get back to flipping the pizza around soon. You saw a little bit about how I manipulate the stove in order to keep the oven hot. Well, because I'm getting the entire oven and wood stove hot, it makes the cabin very warm. So this is how we regulate the AC. And okay, pizza and wood check. Looking good. Wood check still good. Okay, it's time for the pizza to come out of the oven, so let's do that. Usually just typically can perfect. Hold on. Get my scraper out. Just loosen up these edges. Typically it'll fly right off the pan, but right now it's not. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so as you can see, the cheese is all melted and nicely browned. The edges are browned and crispy, so we're gonna cut into this and then it'll be time to serve. Alright, so there you have it. Here is our crunchy, crispy, just beautiful pizza. So we got it nice and cooked there, and thank you guys so much for following along as I made this pizza. If you enjoyed this cooking video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a message in the comments below. Let me know if you want to see more cooking stuff from us. Like I said, I have been getting a lot of requests for cooking, specifically in the wood stove videos, so I really enjoyed making this. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thumbs up, comment, subscribe, all the things, and I'll see you guys soon.